do it.
We're getting spicy today.
Oh,
This is one of my favorite scenes in all of Shakespeare.
Dang.
Yeah, it is. I gotta stretch it out. It is honestly, I think, one of the most incredible moments of a Shakespeare play. I think it is what it does for me, and I'll talk more about this as we get in, but what it does for me is that it proves that no matter how frustrating it is to see underdeveloped female characters on stage in Elizabethan times, to not see a lot of female characters in these plays, it tells me that Shakespeare somehow understood the frustration. Somehow he knew kind of that, and I'll get into the conspiracy theories in a minute, but so there's only one authorship debate that I will entertain, and it's the one I'm going to talk about today. So this is Act 4, Scene 3 of Othello, and talk about a play rife with frustration. For context, in this scene, Desdemona has just been called out by her husband in public. She's basically just been told that she's been unfaithful in front of people, and this is not something that she has been. So she is sad, she is frustrated, she is in her room with her lady-in-waiting, her maid, her BFF Jill, Amelia.
Oh my God, my BFF Jill. Why is that still in my brain?
It'll never leave your brain.
It'll never leave.
What generation are you? Oh, I'm Generation BFF Jill.
Yep.
That's it.
Wow. That was a whole thing. Okay, I'm back.
So she is getting undressed for the night, and Othello basically has said, "You'll sleep alone tonight. So send Amelia away." And Amelia's like, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I was just there seeing that shit, and that's unacceptable behavior, and you deserve better. And Desdemona is really struggling because she wants to be the best wife she can be. She wants to be there for her husband. She knows he's going through something, even though she doesn't know what it is and how she is responsible for it. So they're talking about, first of all, it's beautiful because it's intercut with this song, and it is one of the prettiest, like, it's just very sad. You can see that Desdemona is in kind of a world of her own and trying to come back to reality through it. And then they get into this conversation about cheating. Would you do it for all the world? And Amelia is like, yeah, because if I get the world, then I'm allowed to say what's right and wrong. So would I do it for money, for bribes, for a ring, for vanity, for this or that? No. But for the whole wide world, who wouldn't? So then we get into Desdemona says, I don't think there is any such woman. I don't think anyone would do it. So this is a pretty famous speech, but Amelia starts out with, yes, a dozen, and as many to the vantage as would store the world they played for. But I do think it is their husbands' faults if wives do fall. Say that they slack their duties and pour our treasures into foreign laps, or else break out in peevish jealousies, throwing restraint upon us, or say they strike us, or scant our former, having in despite. Why, we have galls, and though we have some grace, yet we have some revenge. Let husbands know their wives have sense like them. They see and smell and have their palates both for sweet and sour as husbands have. What is it that they do when they change us for others? Is it sport? I think it is. And doth affection breed it? I think it doth. Is it frailty that thus errs? It is so too. And have not we affections, desires for sport and frailty as men have? Then let them use us well, else let them know the ills we do, their ills instruct us so. So this speech and this scene in general really highlights the frustration and the double standard that men have in this time. We're having this conversation, you and me. You did nothing wrong, and you don't believe that anyone in the world, any woman in the world would do this, but men do it every day, and we don't bat an eye. And there has to be some accountability for the way that they treat us. And for context on Amelia, her husband is Iago, who's probably the greatest villain in all of Shakespeare. So there is a level of subtext there that Amelia is struggling with her own issues at home, her own treatment by her husband, and there's nothing, we don't see any of that. We see him kind of balk at her a little bit. They go back and forth very, very minorly in one scene earlier, but he is true evil. And we have to imagine somehow that Amelia suffers for that, especially due to this speech. So I'm going to read it one more time, and then we can talk through it in a bit. Desdemona says, I do not think there is any such woman. And Amelia says, yea, yes, a dozen, and as many to the vantage as would store the world they played for. But I do think it is their husbands' faults if wives do fall. Say that they slack their duties and pour our treasures into foreign laps, or else break out in peevish jealousies, throwing restraint upon us. Or say they strike us, or scant our former, having in despite. Why, we have galls, and though we have some grace, yet we have some revenge. Let husbands know their wives have sense like them. They see and smell and have their palates both for sweet and sour as husbands have. What is it that they do when they change us for others? Is it sport? I think it is. And doth affection breed it? I think it doth. Is it frailty that thus errs? It is so too. And have not we affections, desires for sport and frailty as men have? Then let them use us well, else let them know the ills we do, their ills instruct us so. So there's a moment in there in the middle that it's like women are people too. Let husbands know their wives have sense like them. They see and smell and have their palates both for sweet and sour. We have tastes, we have preferences, we have personalities, interests, desires, that all of that frustration, all of that pent up frustration of not being seen or heard or valued in any way kind of comes out in this speech. And I think it is one of the more powerful moments in Shakespeare, especially knowing that, like, in the next scene, things don't go so well for anyone.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Desdemona ends up dying. Spoilers. Amelia ends up dying. Spoilers. Othello ends up dying. Spoilers. Iago does not die.
Oh.
Iago is one of the only villains in a tragedy. So, like, it's villain season for Protest Too Much, so I'm like all villain mode. Villains in comedy end up getting like arrested or escaping or whatever, but villains in tragedies, I don't know if any of them survive except for Iago. It's a great question for the internet. But yeah, he lives. Big thumbs down for Iago. So yeah, that's this scene. Swan, happy Sunday.
Woo!
Sorry for bringing it down before we even get started.
That's okay.
Do you want to hear my conspiracy theory?
Yes, very much.
It's not mine. I didn't come up with it. So a lot of people are like, Francis Bacon wrote Shakespeare, or the Earl of some place wrote Shakespeare. Shakespeare wasn't educated, so Shakespeare couldn't possibly have written all of these plays because everyone has such a big stick up their butts. All of that trash, I am like, hard pass. If you start authorial debates with me, I am just gonna let you win because I don't have the energy. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't care. But there was a woman named Amelia Bassano, and I did not do my research in preparation for this, so I might get some things wrong. Feel free to correct me in chat if you are an Amelia stan. So she was from a family of musicians in Venice. So she grew up in Venice, and she is the first published female poet, and a lot of her writing is feminism veiled in religion. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, like religious poetry with messages of feminism kind of hidden in them. And so, like, she's a badass. She was rad as hell. And a lot of people are like, well, she must have known Shakespeare. You know, even if like she wasn't Shakespeare, right? Like, even if we're not taking it that far, there has to be a period where Shakespeare met or knew or encountered or whatever her, because first of all, the name Amelia appears in his place. Also, there are variations of Bassano. There's Bassanio, there's Bassanius, there's others. So we see like her influence in naming, which might be a coincidence, of course. But also the the fact that two of those, so Amelia is in Othello and Bassanio is in The Merchant of Venice. Both of those take place in Venice, where Amelia was from. So it kind of like ties into that bit. And just the fact that there are speeches like this that represent a woman's frustration so well, and so thoughtfully, it just feels weird for it to have been only Shakespeare, right? Like, feels like there had to be someone being like, listen, buddy, put this in your play and smoke it. There's a whole play about it. I highly recommend. I know I've talked about it on here before, but it's called Amelia, and I absolutely recommend, if it comes to streaming again, I will shout about it to the rooftops because it's very good. And it's just a really beautiful, well-written play. All female cast, which is rad as heck. So yeah, that's the only authorship debate that I will entertain, that Amelia Bassano wrote some of Shakespeare's plays, or at least influenced them significantly. Otherwise, leave Billy alone. So, stepping off of my soapbox for a moment, where are we going with art?
Okay, so it is. Don't ask me why, because I don't have an answer. But for some reason, I don't know if it's the current world or what, but as you were reading it, as you were talking about it, as you were talking about Desdemona being embarrassed publicly, all I could imagine is a politician and his wife. And so then Amelia being like her secretary, her aide, her personal assistant, and all of that. So face. So I was thinking very much like you've got the perfect like politician's wife haircut. Like they're coming back to a hotel room because that's where they would be staying away alone. And so she's flipping onto the TV to see that the news coverage is now all talking about this big scandal and all of this. And then you've got like the personal assistant going through all of this stuff and like helping her move her things. Like that's just what this screamed at me. And so I had to draw it that way.
That's amazing. Yet again, not something I would ever have considered. That's incredible. And super kind of on point for Othello in general. A lot of this play is misconstruing truths, and one little one little nugget of suggestion can spiral out of control and end up in the death of several people. Because there's basically Iago gets under Othello's skin. He's like, oh man, Desdemona's been hanging out with Cassio a lot, huh? And like, that's it. And then like a little bit later, it's, hey, where'd your wife's handkerchief go?
Oh, man.
And he's planted it with Cassio, of course. And so Othello sees it, and that's proof, right? So Othello really, this play in particular, distorts the idea of truth and what you can believe based on what proof you have. And like for Othello, he sees the handkerchief in Cassio's tent. He puts two and two together. He knows what happened. And it's not. So I use this example a lot when I'm teaching rhetorical analysis, because it's like, yeah, this article that you read cited this source or whatever, or this study, but like, did you look at who did the study? Did you look at where those numbers came from? Did you look at the context of those numbers? If Othello had stopped and asked Cassio, like, hey, Cassio, my wife's handkerchief is in your tent. The fuck is up with that?
Right.
There would have been a lot of murder saved. So question everything. Proof, like, just because something says it's true, just because you have quote unquote proof, doesn't mean like that proof is any better than anything else, or even that it's right or credible or whatever. So that's been on my mind a lot this week, which is another reason that I pulled this piece, besides it being one of my favorites. Because yeah, like starting teaching again, and if there's one thing I can get my kids to do, it's to question everything and read critically. And that's it.
And it's such a valuable skill across the board. Like, that never stops being something that you need in your life.
Nope. I don't care if you remember the plot of The Great Gatsby 10 minutes from now, let alone 10 years, right? Like, I'm going to say this, and coming from me, it's a big deal, but like, books don't matter. It's what you do with them, and it's what you do with the ideas that you get from them. So like, remembering the plot of a book you read in high school is absolutely irrelevant to the rest of your life. Nobody's going to stop you. That's why, like, when I give quizzes, they're always open-ended questions. Like, I won't do multiple choice, because I'm like, no one's going to stop you on the street in 15 years and be like, what color was Frankenstein's eyes? And if they do, like, you are an adult and you're free to ignore them. Like, or you pull up your phone and you Google it, because that's what we can do now. Right. So what's the point of giving quizzes like that? Who cares? And like, the thing I care about is that you've read Frankenstein, and now you can talk to me about the moral implications of experimentation, or you can talk to me about guilt versus pride. You can talk to me about, I've never read Frankenstein, so I don't know why I'm using that as an example.
No, but also, like, we'll say, just from a very baseline thing, like the dangers of mob mentality. Like, you don't have to specifically remember what the villagers were chanting to go get Frankenstein, but the idea that they all banded together and stopped thinking for themselves, that's a really good takeaway.
Yep. Yeah. That's why when we did Caesar, we had a Twitter on the screen, because that's all that play is like, wow, maybe take a step back and critically think about the situation. And so, yeah, if that's like one thing that I can get my kids to remember, that's the most important thing, and does not happen in Othello. Nobody besides Emilia stops to think critically, but Emilia too, because Iago is like, hey, can you grab Desdemona's handkerchief for me? And she's like, yeah, okay. And then as the handkerchief stuff is coming up, she doesn't then turn around and be like, hold on, pause. I'm the one who, and eventually that does all come out. But like, again, the frustration of what she is able to do. Say, like, who knows if she didn't do that, what Iago could or would have done, etc.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of kind of like, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's something I simultaneously love and hate about. I think of Shakespeare because I always go back to like Romeo and Juliet, and it's that like they are building up all of these missed opportunities where somebody could have been saved or things could have been explained. And I know it's a whole storytelling thing, but I still have those moments where I'm just like so stressed and I'm so frustrated about this and I just want it to be okay, but they're not talking and they missed this thing. And you know, it's just, it's so good. But at the same time, like I'm exhausted by the end of it because I'm just like, oh, that was so frustrating.
Yeah, it makes it hard. Miscommunication is, yeah,
no joke.
It's a lot. Yeah, so welcome. If you are just joining us, we are looking at Act 4, Scene 3 of Othello, the scene with Desdemona and Emilia, and it is their husband's faults if wives do fall. I'm going to go ahead and read the speech again. We got some new folks. And then we'll kind of talk through some of your choices here. So they're talking about infidelity, and Desdemona can't believe that any woman in the world would do such a thing to her husband. And Emilia says, yes, a dozen, and as many to the advantage as would store the world they played for. But I do think it is their husband's fault if wives do fall. Say that they slack their duties and pour our treasures into foreign laps, or else break out in peevish jealousies, throwing restraint upon us. Or say they strike us, or scant our former having in despite. Aye, we have galls, and though we have some grace, yet we have some revenge. Let husbands know their wives have sense like them. They see and smell and have their palates both for sweet and sour, as husbands have. What is it that they do when they change us for others? Is it sport? I think it is. And doth affection breed it? I think it doth. Is it frailty that thus errs? It is so too. And have not we affections, desires for sport and frailty, as men have? Then let them use us well. Else let them know their ills we do, their ills instruct us so. So, talk me through this. I feel like went up so fast, the whole page of it.
This one, I don't know. Sometimes I just see it, which is always super cool as an artist. And then I have those moments where I'm just drawing as fast as I can because I have the idea and I want to get it down, which is always funny. But yeah, this one, I don't know. It just, the visual was there for me. But also I think, again, this is playing up things that I absolutely love to draw. And that is people having
hotel rooms.
Oh, I do. Yes. Love hotel rooms. Architecture in general is just not a thing I'm good at, but I'm practicing. But I love people talking to each other. And I love these scenes because almost every chunk that you've brought to me has a lot that's happening. Even though there's so much language, there's a lot that's happening in visual cues. So there's a lot of fun that I can play with of body language and staging and all of that, which is just, again, it's just exciting. So yeah, this one came together in my brain.
Talk to me about your thoughts on Desdemona in this. Because like my favorite thing about watching TV shows is, you know, that, or movies or whatever, you know that the actors are really good when you're never seeing the actor that's talking. It's always on the actor that's listening. And so I think that for as charged and as strong and as like frustrated and full of anger and emotion and pain and everything that this speech from Emilia is, excuse you. Here was us up. Desdemona is listening. And Desdemona has been through a lot in this scene. So like, where do you see her, or how do you see her? I think emotionally, physically.
I think honestly, I think that's a lot of why I gravitated towards essentially what is the trope of a politician's wife. And I think it's because that in my brain, while times are changing, there's still a lot of the same, but that is always, no matter what the husband or the politician does, the wife is standing there stoically next to them, supporting them, not breaking, putting on that sheen, that veneer for the media, for the press, for the public eye, and not necessarily letting whatever it really is happening deep inside them out. So you have that kind of controlled chaos where it's almost, as they push it down even more, like it fuels them to just be that much more stoic, or that much more, I don't want to say repressed, but they're really not letting any of the emotion crack through. And I feel like because she is in such a weakened state, if Amelia does come at her with kind of a contradictory thought, I almost see her continuing to not put up the sheen, but to not let herself be vulnerable to this conversation that they're having. So she's listening, but she's also not showing. She's still not breaking. She's still not, you know, she's not flying into a rage or flying into a crying. You know, she didn't come into the room and immediately fall on the bed, Disney princess style, like throw herself on and start crying. Like she is still composed, because I feel like at a certain point, like there's so much of that is a part of her now, because it's so much of her life. So, you know, she's holding it together, but just barely. And I think because this isn't like her friend coming in and being like, hey, this really sucks, we should go get drunk. Like, this is something where I'm like, nope, clearly you're working through some shit too, and I'm gonna listen because this is what I do. Yeah, so I see her still not fully like letting her guard down or being that vulnerable in that moment, even though she is attentive.
Yeah, and I think this is really interesting. It's an interesting kind of concept for it, because what it does that I've never really considered before is it ages Desdemona. To be the wife of a politician, there's some, you know, age required. Like, there's definitely in that space in your career, like that wife is going to be at least 30, right?
Yeah.
By the time that people are in office that are going to be getting enough attention to like be public news like this. And I've never seen Desdemona as that old. Like 30 to me is old for Desdemona. And that's, I think, what's so cool about this, because an older Desdemona opens up so many new tools for exploration for the character. Like there's an element of like practice, and like you were saying, like that ability to stay composed. That's gonna be more like she's gonna have had more practice with that the older she gets. It's really interesting. I'm like trying to think through it as I'm sitting here, because I've never considered it. I'm like, yeah, she's like 22 max.
Well, and I think, again, I think it's, and I am positive that this has to do with the fact that I am now in my 30s, so I am approaching it. So sometimes when I'm imagining characters, I imagine them at the age I am. Yeah, but I almost find I almost find something that much more heartbreaking with someone who is older. Like, you're not a teenager fueled by passion. You are an adult and you have been through stuff, and yet you still are letting all of this happen. Not that it's her fault, but like, you let things go and you don't speak up, or you don't confront, or things don't get cleared up. And it's almost that much more heartbreaking as adults, because you have more tools to express yourself and you're not.
Yeah. And it's something that's as closed circuit as the like political clubhouse.
Yeah.
There's like, we've come so far, right? But there are still areas where men have so much more. Like, and I think that this area of politics is a place where if your husband is the politician, it doesn't just give him more power in the relationship, but more power over your community, over your state or city or whatever that is. And that tangible power or imbalance of power in your marriage is, you know, and obviously we hope that that's not the case, because we hope that people are good and kind and love their spouses. But we know that's not true, right?
Yeah.
And looking at this in context of like current times, that is a place where Amelia might feel like this, or Desdemona might feel like this, because it is such a old boys club still. Where are you thinking for
I think
Amelia,
that's probably
age-wise?
I was gonna say I think it's the old boys club, and how you introed this with, you know, it is a remarkable moment of feminine realness and just intuitiveness on the part of Shakespeare. But I think that led into, how can I set this up in an arena that still feels like it isn't caught up to current times and current equality. And that was the first one that I went to. I was thinking a little bit younger for Amelia, but not a lot. Like, not a kid, like definitely an assistant or somebody who has been on, you know, campaign trails with them before, or has been a part of this family and this interaction for long enough. At least just from what you read to me, it sounded like something that, it's not like Juliet talking to the nurse where it's, you know, in the confines of that, but this feels like a closer relationship where Desdemona wouldn't say something like this to just a random servant. Like, this feels like somebody she's known, or at least trust enough. And I think having her be the assistant to that, someone who handles all of the scheduling, someone who handles, you know, her PDA and all of that, like, she would have access to so much more information than a lot of other people.
Yeah. That's fun. I always see Amelia as much older than Desdemona.
Interesting.
Not like much, but like definitely older. That's really fun. I love this. I think a lot of it I think a lot of it comes from, I played Desdemona, and I felt very old. I was 25 and I felt like I was so old the whole time. Yeah, it was a rough experience. I won't lie to you.
Oh no.
It was a tough play to be part of, for a lot of different reasons. But I value that experience so much because to that point, I had never had the opportunity to play an ingenue. Like me? An ingenue? No, ma'am. I just never gotten the chance to do it, and I didn't know what it was like. I am a Beatrice. I am someone else that's angry. I like to think I'm a Lady Macbeth. Haven't gotten to that yet, but one day. I think I've got time. I am so many things, but like an ingenue had never crossed my mind as a thing I could be. I'm an Amelia, you know, boiling it down. Like that's, yeah, I'm a Kate. I've done Kate as well. There's a shrewishness about me, you might say.
See, I was thinking of self-assured, confident women who, well, like confident who some of their confidence is masking insecurity, but they are outwardly confident and they are outwardly aware of who they are, and they aren't fainting. They aren't weak. Like, they will go toe to toe with any character who interacts with them. And and that's a very specific personality type, and it's one that's very fun to read. Often those are the more fun characters than, you know, the characters who are just like, oh yeah, he's cool.
And to that point, I think that there's so much more opportunity to bring confidence and self-assuredness and some spice to the Desdemonas and the Juliets and the
hero
Ophelias. Yeah. There's so much, like, if you approach those characters with a little bit of body, a little bit of experience, like if you're an older actor, and by older I mean like not 15, and you've lived a little bit, if you get the chance to get cast as those, like, don't shy away from giving them like personalities. And that's like something that I think is a cool perspective to have. Sonata says that Craig claims Malvolio, and absolutely yes. Malvolio is, I feel so bad for Malvolio. Like, Malvolio is such a butthole a lot of the times, but like, also, does he deserve what he gets? I don't think so. I don't know. They're very cruel to him. They gaslight the heck out of him, and it is very sad and very mean. And he will be revenged on the whole pack of you. I want to see a sequel. Malvolio Returns. 12th Night 2. Malvolio Boogaloo. Oh, I thought, Sonata, I thought you were talking about in terms of like wanting to play on stage, not necessarily seeing in themselves. But Mercutio is a great one. Swan, what's your Shakespeare type?
Oh gosh. I would probably say, oh no, I'm going to blank out on their names.
That's fine.
The two back and forth jester characters from Hamlet.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Like, if we're gonna talk about like what, yes, like just me talking to myself, like going back and forth, like messing stuff up and being goofy. Like, I feel like that's really where I live in the world of Shakespeare.
That's really funny.
I was gonna say it was that or the nurse. Like, not because I am motherly or like take care of people, but because I was like, no, she is just lewd and inappropriate anytime she's on stage. And I was like, yeah, that's fair.
I want to see Charles McFall play the nurse in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my God. That'd be so perfect.
That thought came into my head and I needed to get it out of my mouth. Oh my God. And yeah, Future Skeleton, I'm sorry. How did I go with 12th Night Part 2 versus 13th Night? Listen. Listen. I don't know. I have no excuse. There's nothing that I can give you for that.
That's really
Swan,
funny.
I see you as like a Horatio.
Okay.
And slight preview. We're doing for the next couple, we've got a regular episode of Protest Too Much this week. And then after that, we've got 2 weeks of special 1-year anniversary episodes that I've gotten a few past guests and a few future guests to tell me who the best character in Shakespeare is. Nice. And so far, there is only one character who's been repeated as a choice.
Oh.
And that is Horatio from Hamlet.
Aww.
And it's because I'll let you wait for their explanations for it. But Horatio is like the most solid character, the most like head on his shoulders, understands what's going on, knows how to handle Hamlet, knows how to handle the court, knows how to handle Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, knows how to handle Laertes, knows how to like juggle all of the balls, and also is very kind and sweet, and also gets one of the best lines in all of Shakespeare.
Oh,
and that's that "Good night, sweet prince." Like,
well, thank you.
It's a lot. But I think that's the kind of character I see you as. Like, not devoid of personality. Like, there are some characters who are like, yeah, they've got their head on their shoulder. But that's kind of it. That's their only thing. With someone like Future Skeleton says, also, LOL, you just said Swan knows how to juggle balls. Lol, 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 lol. Listen, Future Skeleton. I said what I said and I won't take it back. But yeah, like, there's so much like love in Horatio, and like he knows how to talk to people, and like he is a good friend, and he's just cool. So yeah, I think that's the kind of character I see you as.
Well,
but also would watch the heck out of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Also, all I can think of is from the Disney Robin Hood made Marion's assistant the hen in that outfit. Like, that's the outfit I'm seeing Charles in, playing the nurse, and that's all I can picture. Like him in
Charles,
the nurse.
I don't know if you watch this. I know, like, I know you listen to In Addition. I know that you keep up with our stuff, but like, if you're watching this, please get at me. Let's make it happen. Dragon Con, Gorilla Shakespeare,
Yes.
Romeo and Juliet.
Brit track, here we come.
Brit track, here we come. Yeah, actually, I emailed the Brit track and I was like, hey, am I allowed to like post digital media stuff in your group because it's Shakespeare and people might like it? And they were like, hell yeah. And I was like, okay.
Yay!
Cool. So yeah. Man, I feel like my brain is as rambly as the nurse. I thought it was a great play. I thought it was a really sad play. But it has some really incredible moments. And I think that bringing it into it's one of those plays that bringing it into the 21st century is hard. Because there are a lot of things that happen that are unique to Elizabethan time. Like, I feel like anytime someone gets married and their father doesn't like it, I feel like that makes it hard to like modernize, you know? Obviously that stuff still happens, but this one is really cool because Desdemona is like, well, I married him, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. Which is one of the coolest speeches, because normally there's a whole fight and a whole big thing, and her dad is like not chill with it, but she's like, you, like, my mom, when she married you, gave all her love to you instead of her dad. So, like, why would you expect me to only be devoted to you when I have a husband now? Gonna go to war with him. Bye. Okay. It's really cool. It's a really cool moment. And gives, like, shows that strength of the ingenues that we don't often or always see. Got some lady influence in this play. I'm just saying.
Well, I also think it's interesting, and again, I am woefully inept when it comes to Othello because I've done no reading on it and know very, very little about it as a whole. But I feel like when it comes to the arranged marriages, again, not just to defend the decision I made for the art, but like very much the old money political maneuvering that happens in this country, where it was like, no, like, you need to marry this person because this will read well at the polls, because this person will make you a good match, because they are beautiful and well-spoken and submissive and this, that, and the other thing. Like,
it's like when Warner doesn't want to marry Elle Woods because he thinks it's going to be bad for his political career. You dummy.
He's a Jackie, not a Marilyn.
Yeah.
You're breaking up with me because I'm too blonde? Also, that movie still holds up. Also, that Broadway show is phenomenal. The music in that is so stinking good. So good.
I used to call it my guilty pleasure musical, but like I've just started owning it now because like I don't feel guilty about it at all. Nope. Like yeah, so Mike says, to be fair, marrying Act 1 Elle Woods probably would be bad for his political career. But like, also, I think that she has, even before, for as sheltered and kind of bubble she's lived before she gets to Harvard and everything, she still maintained a 4.0 average as a president of a sorority. And like, she was able to balance these things. And I think occasion had never called for her to be anything but what she was. And so I think that if he had trust in her ability to, he says, let me be clear though, marrying any 18-year-old girl is dangerous for one's political career. Yeah.
22, she was 21. I was going to say, she was 21, 22 at that point. But yeah,
same effect. But yeah, I think that Act 1, Elle Woods has the capability of adapting to whatever situation Warner would have needed her to be. But I do think that him breaking up with her was the best thing for her life, because then she met Luke Wilson.
Yeah. Swoon.
Also, gosh, the whole musical is on YouTube. The MTV special or whatever, where they filmed the musical, and like sometimes I'll watch it. It's so great. I'll also sometimes watch compilation videos of Courtney Take Your Break. Like high school or community theater or whatever, youth productions of Legally Blonde, where they just show that one line, Courtney, take your break. And it just makes me chuckle. There's something about it.
So the high school that I went to ended up combining with the other high school in town. So now there's one big high school in my town, but in a very close neighboring town, there's a much smaller school. But one of the dance teachers at my studio choreographs all the dance numbers for their musicals, which is awesome. And they do a wonderful job. But the year they put on Legally Blonde, the girl who they had, I think she was a sophomore at the time, like she was literally Elle Woods. Like she was tiny and she was blonde and she had this big voice. And I was like, you can't not do the show because you literally have it and it's perfect. And they did such a phenomenal job at it for being this small school. Like they even had to get like one or two of the theater kids who'd been in it before to come back from college and help them. Like some of the staff stands in because they just don't have enough kids. But it was so good. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
I love that. I love Legally Blonde. I just think it's so good. It's so singable. It's so singable. Yeah, it's great. I'm a little mad about it because I can't even pull off a blonde wig if I tried. So the only I've always said that if I ever get cast in like a miscast cabaret, that's what I'm gonna sing is Legally Blonde.
Is that a thing?
Miscast cabarets, yeah. So I did one once, and the song that I sang, I don't know what your noontime rating is on this channel, but do you know 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee? It's hilarious.
Okay. Maybe if I heard it. Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, great musical. Second of all, it's a spelling bee. It's all adults playing children in a spelling bee. And last year's winner, Chip Tolentino, gets up there and sees a girl in the crowd and gets a boner and misspells the word and gets kicked out first. And so his Act 2 song, because he's been kicked out, he has to sell concessions now. His act, like, starts Act 2 is called My Unfortunate Erection. And it is the funniest. Like, Swan, you would die. You will love this so much. So that was, I was in a miscast cabaret once, and that's what I sung because first of all, I have the voice of a tenor. Second of all, it's so funny to get to sing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
It's so silly. It's really good. And then there are songs that hit you and you're like, holy crap, that was emotional. And I wasn't prepared for that in this spelling bee musical. But yeah, definitely recommended. 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. That's how did we get on this track?
Legally Blonde, but I can't. Yes,
politicians marrying the people that they want.
It's a winding, curving path to get there.
That's where we are today. It's Dragon Con in 2 weeks. In 11 days.
In 11 days.
Is the 11 days, is that to Thursday?
I don't even know. I have no concept.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's to Thursday.
Okay.
When do you
so
get one?
Wednesday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Woo. Y'all, what do you want to see at Dragon Con for Sketching Shakespeare?
Yay!
Swan, you can plug your ears for a moment. But we're gonna be doing a we're gonna be doing a live panel of this, and I haven't picked a scene yet because I don't know if I should like have a couple options and let the audience choose. I don't know if we'll have an audience. In any case, I'll have a couple options up my sleeve anyway. But what do I punk Swan with for Dragon Con? Audience options? Okay. What are your favorite scenes in Shakespeare, my friends? Swan, do you prefer high action or low action?
I'm trying to think because I'm going to be drawing fast. And I'm going to be drawing not digitally. I'm going to be drawing traditionally.
Woo!
I think either is okay. I was going to say like, other than like a fight scene, like an actual sword fight, because while I could do it on the spot, like sword fight choreography is really cool and actually a really dope thing. Like I don't think I'd be able to do it justice doing it that fast. So, but even like something like the Tempest scene that we did, like that had a lot of action, a lot of movement, and that was fine. Because I could kind of play with it through the scene. So yeah, so as long as it's not like something that would actually be big stunt work, unless we can get the person you had on a recent episode who is actually a stunt coordinator to get him to be like, here, I videoed what I would do with this.
Honestly, like everyone should follow my friend Chewy on Instagram because he'll do videos of like fight choreo and like with sticks or with swords or like with whatever, and you're like, I don't even know how that's real. Also watch The Witcher season 2 because he's in that.
That's awesome.
So exciting.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Famous. Yeah, it was really cool to get to hear his perspective because I don't have that. Like I don't know what to think about when choreographing fights, but just the way he talked about how it gives minor characters more of an opportunity for characterization. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So no like fight scenes, no sword fighting.
I was going to say, that's probably the only thing that would really, really challenge me. Like, and mostly because it's in person. Like if I was doing it digitally, I think that'd be fine. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious because I'm working on, actually, it's funny. Because I didn't want to fly with them, I literally ordered them from Amazon and had them shipped to Raging Lady Boner. But I'm going to be drawing on like 12 by 18 sketch pads. So yeah, you'll get to actually see me do it in person on paper.
That's so exciting. Gosh, I'm so excited. 12 by 18. So that's like trying to visualize. I'm the worst. Okay. All right.
So if you stuck like 2 8.5 by 11 sheets together, you'd get an 11 by 17. It's a little bit bigger than 11 by 17.
Okay. Thank you for that context. Okay. That's going to be so fun. And you won't, the way that, so talk to me, we're in art section now. With the layering of, so like you did almost like a pencil sketch first for this. And now it's like you're inking it.
Yep.
So do you do that with like pencil and like a pen or a marker or something?
So what I'll probably do, and I'm going to bring a couple of options just because we have ideas for what the setup might be. But if it ends up not being that and I have to do something on the fly, then I will pivot and do something different. So I really like, coming from an animation background, I really like sketching in Coal Erase. Which is, it's essentially like a colored pencil. It just erases really well like a pencil, but it's all different colors. So I sketch in that. So then when I go back in my sketchbook, I can go over that in graphite, regular pencil, or I could go over it right in ink. But it lets me kind of work through all of my stuff very light like I'm doing here's. And so I can sketch it that way. Because we are doing it in a way that people are going to be watching me do it, I'll probably jump right to a thicker marker, which is also why I'm drawing bigger, so that I could put in hard lines that are big and bold that everybody can see. Even if I end up having to stand up and hold it up in front of people, they can see what I'm doing with that marker line. But that's where I work the fastest. So I can put all those rough lines down really, really quickly in color and then there's almost that much more contrast between the marker and the colored pencil because you're not getting like layers of the dark graphite like building up. It's just this lighter kind of colored pencil. So that's my plan.
Do you find that I don't want to call them mistakes because I've watched exactly one episode of Bob Ross ever, and I know that we don't do that here. But do you find that if you're drawing like in pen or marker or something more permanent, that you adapt to the lines you've drawn more than like erasing them like you can do digitally or with pencil? Like, do you kind of change course in a way that, well, it's on the page now, so like we're living with it? And like, how does that kind of brain process work?
So I will tell you, that's something that I have learned how to do and not something that I started doing or did for a while. And it's funny, I had one of my younger helpers, one of the weeks of camp, who he likes art, and he was asking me some art questions. And one of his questions was just like, well, how do I get better at sketching? Which is a very broad thing, but we were also around a lot of students, so it fits for younger kids too. But my big thing is it took me a really long time not to be so precious with my art. And that's a weird thing where it was one of those, like, because every sketch that I was doing up until that point, like, could be a really great thing. And if I mess it up, then I've ruined this really great thing. And I'll never, like, if I did this eye just perfectly, I'll never be able to draw that eye again, just like that, which could be true. I might never draw an eye that well again, but it's okay. And so once I got past the, like, I have to hang on to every one of these. And that was also a big turning point in doing commissions and doing live art at shows, like live art that I plan to give away or selling my original sketches. I was like, you'll never see that again. If I don't make a print of it, that original piece of artwork will never be in my my realm again. And I got to be okay with that. But it took time and it took practice because, you know, a lot of these are little pieces of my soul that I put out on paper. And so it's weird to just be like, I don't know if I can give this away yet. And there's some pieces where like people would ask me and I'm like, I'm not ready to let it go yet. Like, come back and see me in 5 years and I'll probably be ready then. But right now I'm not. So with that, and with working at shows and working at different fun, like drink and draw things where the whole goal was to create a piece of artwork that would be given away or sold, I knew I had to work fast and I had to work in a way that was okay and going to be moved through. And a lot of time, like, we're working with pencils and Sharpies, like not my high-end art supplies. So it was one of those where getting comfortable with, okay, not only am I putting lines down with very specific purpose, but I'm also not going to beat myself up if I kind of, no, I messed up that line, or that's a really bad hand. And you know what? We're just going to have to live with the fact that that's a really bad hand and that hand lives in the universe now. So, but I will say, like, if I only had a Sharpie and I was laying down like ink first, that's going to be a different approach for me than being able to sketch it out in pencil first. Because I work, I mean, you see me for many weeks now. I work very loose, very rough, very sketchy, and then I like cleaning up on top. And so if the only thing I have to draw with is a pen, I have to try and do a lot of that loose sketching in my brain first before I actually put it down on paper, which sounds really weird, but I have to try and visualize all the stuff I would normally work out on paper before I put pen down. So it's, yes, it is a whole thought process and it is a specific thing.
So the best art I've ever made, I made a Ted Lasso Believe sign for my classroom. And I'm so bad at space that I took sticky notes because I didn't have a pencil to like pencil out where the letters would go first. So I took sticky notes and drew the letters on like each sticky note so that I knew I could line them up and like have enough room for all of the letters. So I had to like stay within the section of sticky note that the letter was meant to be.
I love it. See, that's such good planning. Also, laying out letters is really hard. I don't know that I've laughed quite as hard at any other stand-up he's done, but John Mulaney has a thing where he talks about making a happy birthday sign. And he's like, the big ass B. And he's like, oh no. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's so true. And It's so perfect, and I just love it so much.
Is that why lettering is a whole job?
Yep.
Whole skill, like fitting the right amount of letters and the right amount of words? Because like, oh, this is a question. Who draws speech bubbles? Is it the letterer or the artist or the inker, or like?
It would either be most likely either the penciler or the letterer. Most likely the penciler, because they have the script, so they know what's going to be said. At least we'll say two-part answer. In current comic times, they have the script, they know what's going to be said, so they are part of what you're doing. And why I don't do it as much in this, because I don't include the text that these characters are saying, just because of the way that this is. But if I was to include them and their speech bubbles, I would plan my page around the space that the speech bubble would take specifically. Because the last thing you want is to have someone come in and essentially put like a whole Post-it over all of this art that you created, because they need that much space to put the text in.
Yeah.
Depending on how closely you're working. So we'll say, roll it back to early comics. So early Stan Lee, early Jack Kirby, he would literally just draw the page of a rough idea of what was going to happen. And then they would write the text in to fill the bubbles that he had to like tell the story along with what art had already been done and what space was set up. Like, yep. I'm like, that's a level of trust between true creators that is just super stressful to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, and now with, you know, digital stuff, it's cool because you could literally send your file that's got all these different layers, and you could send a layer that's just all the speech bubbles, and they could move them around and change them as they need to. You've got somebody like, who is my super nerdy moment. My all-time favorite letterer is a lovely gentleman named Todd Klein. And his big thing that you would know him for is he did all the lettering for the Neil Gaiman Sandman series. And that included actually like designing and developing different fonts for the different characters in it. Like he just made up and he hand lettered it all. Like none of it's digital. It's all his penmanship. It's insane. It's so cool. I have I think I have 3 different posters of his that are just like lettering studies because I love it so much. But with him, like, I think he was kind of working. Yeah. Lost Limey, the Endless had great unique fonts. They did. And each different Endless had a different font style. And it was so cool. So cool. So, you know, he was kind of given some leeway because he was going to be, because there was so much text, because he was going to be doing so much per page. I don't know exactly when he came in along the pipeline process, but every page that there's a ton of text and there's a ton of cool lettering happening, I'm assuming he was probably either consulted or talked to the artist or had some impact on how that page was laid out or left space for so that he could do all the cool stuff that he did. So there's so much happening on your face.
Well, so I'm looking at, I'm going to pull this up just because I'm looking at it and I want to ask the question thoughtfully rather than like randomly. So I'm looking at I have never, another thing that I've never thought about before, writing white text on a black background. So we've got this image over here. Oops. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. I think you guys get the gist. Does a letterer draw the outlines?
He might.
Like almost like bubble letters? Or is it something that they...
So for that one, I think he might have actually inked into and left white space for the letters, or gone back in with like a white acrylic paint and painted it over the filled in part, because a lot of these were still being inked traditionally. They weren't being inked digitally. But yeah, and so that's really cool. So that's Dream. So all of his dialogue throughout the book is all black background with white text, which is starkly different from the rest of the characters. So, yep. And then you've got like Delirium, who is obviously what her character sounds like. Like her fonts wiggle, her bubbles wiggle. There's always this weird movement to it because she's delirious. And yeah, it's
so
cool.
wild. Oh, Shakespeare. This is really fascinating. Like getting to see, I've never really, thought through the shape of the text bubbles is indicative of the character. Like, so to be able to use all of that for characterization, as well as font and coloring and all of that, like that's just more than I had ever known or thought of. That's really cool. Yeah, so getting the text bubble too, kind of where we started this conversation, getting the text bubble or the speech bubble and having to fit in that, like that's got to take so much practice and so much just practice, time, understanding of spacing. Obviously that's not something that I own in my body.
Well, it's something fascinating, and it wasn't until I actually started illustrating my own comics where I came to appreciate so much of that is actually on the onus of the writer. And it's funny. Now, Neil Gaiman aside, because he kind of exists in his own bubble when it comes to it, and there's a lot of lengthy speeches and heavy language that happens in Sandman. It's awesome, and there's nothing against it. But we'll talk just across the board, general, a lot of superhero comics, but general comics. They speak in short sentences, and they speak in very quick, short interactions. And you don't realize it until you start to lay out a page. And there was one page I'll always remember from the second anthology that I did where it's two characters talking to each other in a car. And the writer had a lot that they wanted to express, but the amount of time that it took me to plan out the page because there was so much dialogue. And you think you have a lot of space, but you don't. Like you type, if a character says 2 sentences, that fills up a huge chunk of the panel. So all of a sudden you've now got like little character head here, little character head here, and then big old bubbles in the middle. And so you start to have a lot of respect for writers who can write without a lot of flourish, without a lot of excessive adjectives or descriptors. And that again goes to knowing your medium. You don't need to describe to me the scene. You don't need to tell me how beautiful this woman is or what the costume is or what the scenery is, because that's my job. You gave me the language. You can say that to me in the brief of what you'd like my page to look like, but we don't have to say it in the dialogue between the characters because that's what should be happening in the art. Yeah. Also, Lost Limey, I love your comment. Yeah, Chris Claremont laughs at your short sentences. Huge guy known for X-Men stuff and also wordy. But yeah, so it's fascinating to see why I think a lot of people who write novels don't always transition smoothly into writing comics because they're used to relying on all of their words. And now you have to strip it away so much, not to make it simplistic or childish, just really succinct. And that's a challenge. Yes. So it's very cool. And so along those lines, as you were talking about that, I had an interesting conversation recently with one of my really good friends who we're both humongous comic nerds. So we talk a lot of comic nerd stuff. But he was saying how he legitimately has a friend who like just reads the comics and really doesn't pay attention to the art that's going on or doesn't pay attention to this stuff. So it's something, oh sorry, got a note. It's something that there are a number of different ways to enjoy comics. So just because there might be some writing styles with some ways and not with others, there's no right or wrong way to do it. All right, streaming to change this may be an issue.
Yeah, I see that notification too. No.
Or just remove this destination.
It looks like we're good.
Okay. Yes, we're still.
Y'all let us know if we just disappear.
Okay, we're back now. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do comics, I think was my main takeaway. But
yeah. So what I think is really interesting is I am a fiction writer. That is where I come from. And to say that I use a lot of words where one would suffice is an understatement. I love words. I love Russian literature. And guess what the best part about Russian literature is? You can go 3 pages without punctuation. You're like, dang, was that sentence 16 pages long? It sure was. Dostoevsky. Hell yeah. One of the things I've been trying to do is especially trying to tailor my writing for picture books. And I had a draft of my picture book and they were like, you need to cut 300 words from this. And I was like, but it's only 600 words. And they were like, yeah, you heard me. So like, woo, really stressful that. Hey, thanks, other doc. Woo!
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome to Sketching Shakespeare.
We are today. We're talking about Othello, Act 4, Scene 3, Amelia's speech. Swan is drawing it. Right now, we're talking about being wordy. So, yeah, for me, I've had to really work on being more concise in my wording and working on Dennis's comic, graphic novel. That's been really fun to get to practice because even I'm looking through and I'm like, we don't need that sentence. We don't need this sentence. We don't need that. It's so easy to do when it's someone else's words.
Yeah.
I have discovered I am a great editor, bad writer. Because I'm like, chop it. This 2 sentences, this can be 1 word. We don't need this. Just have a grunt here. That's fine. And it's so weird because in my own writing, I'm like, it was the best of times and the worst of times and the medium times and the so-so times and the slightly good times and the maybe a little better times. Paid by the word. Exactly, Roller 300. Paid by the word.
So it's Charles Dickens style.
Right. So I'm very, very excited, all of that to say that one of the panels that I'm on for Dragon Con is with the writing track, the comic track.
Literacy?
It's a track.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a track.
Yeah.
Dennis got us on it. But we're doing a panel on The Witcher and talking about going from novel to graphic novel to TV show to video game and how that changes, how the what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with an M.
Medium?
Yeah, how the medium how the medium changes the content or how the content has to change for the medium. And so I'm really excited to look at the difference because for a video game, it's like you have even less space to tell the story with those like one-on-one interactions. And you can, have more words maybe to scroll than a graphic novel, but you're giving up the space somewhere else. So I'm very excited to talk about that. I feel very unqualified to talk about it, but I'm excited nonetheless.
Well, and I think it's going to be cool. Again, something I selfish and shameless plug. It's why I enjoy this so much because you and I come at these things from 2 totally different angles. And I am self-professed not a writer. I'm not good at it. I don't feel comfortable with it. I would rather draw to express myself any day of the week. So it's so cool to come at it from the history of that. And it's why I love the conversations. And it's why I think it's so cool to talk about all those different ways. So video game, comic book, graphic novel, movie, TV show, all of these. There are skill sets attached to each of them that make them succeed. And it's not just like you can have a great concept. That's a huge part of it. But having people be able to execute it to the best of that medium's talent, like that's a huge thing. And again, it's why I've always loved when he talks about comics. Like comics opened up what TV shows at the time couldn't do. You couldn't have huge space adventures. Like you look at what they were doing in Star Trek and it's a interpersonal study. It doesn't have a lot to do with them actually being in space and doing space battles and stuff. Like,
yeah, who has the budget for that?
Right. or at the time, you know, the technology, even the stuff that they were getting away with in Star Wars. So you can now have characters like Galactus and Silver Surfer who literally, you know, devourer of worlds. You can show that in a comic. You can have Guardians of the Galaxy traveling to all these crazy places because there's a budget for it, because you're only limited by your imagination. Yeah. And yet, like we talked about before, like if you like a fight scene, like a fast fencing or a space battle, like some of that's going to look cooler if you can watch it in a visual medium, where, you know, in something where it's an actual like play. Like that's a cooler thing because you are able to control pacing to a certain point in comics, but not completely. And you can't hold on a shot like you can in a movie or something because you can't control where people are going to look next. You know? Right. So it's so cool. So I'm very excited for you.
I need Sonata to we need to like mesh brains, because I am great at scenery. So good at it. I like see things in my head. I'm like, I know exactly what this looks like. I know exactly what this is. I'm going to use so many good words to describe it. But then like, I mean, I literally write post-apocalyptic fiction so that I don't have to have any dialogue. That is how much I hate writing dialogue. I'm like, maybe there can be a dog. I will let this girl, I legit, like, I hate writing dialogue so much that I avoid it at any cost. Also action. I wrote a really fun short story a while ago, like in college. And I left a break at the end and I sent it to Anthony and I was like, can you write this action scene? Because I won't. I need to finish this story, but like I need you to finish it for me because I can't do it.
Well, and I'll say that's something super cool when it comes to storytelling in D&D and the respect I have for DMs, because very much like a video game, like you have to have your rough outline, but you also have to then try to tell your story without forcing your characters to just parrot your words and parrot the plan that you have, and like the live on the fly changing of that, and world like, okay, well, they went into the place I wasn't expecting them to go into, so now I have to imagine this whole other place that has characters and voices, and oh my gosh, I like
literal sound modulation voice, and like the way the person speaks. I am amazed at DMs in general that they can do that. Also, when you have players who are buttholes. And you're like, well, what's his name? I mean, my favorite character in season 1 of Adventure Incorporated is a character that we bullied Anthony into making because none of us had detect magic. So we were like, we need to detect magic in this room, but we don't have anyone. So we were like, all right, we'll just call someone from the compound and they'll detect the magic. So we need a wizard. Send for a wizard. And this wizard comes in and is like, all right, like there's no magic or whatever. And someone was like, what's your name? And he was like, Clyde. And it was like, what's your last name? And he was like, Harper, I guess. And I was like, Genevieve's in love with him. Genevieve's never seen someone so beautiful in her whole entire life. And like, I'm not going to spoil anything about our campaign. But he was probably the most important NPC by the end of it. Aww. Like, I would say almost top 3 for sure. But like of a 5-year campaign, this dingbat that came in just to detect magic that Anthony had not planned at all became top 3 NPC of our entire 5-year campaign because we're bullies. And the fact that he did that and wasn't just like, oh, you guys are assholes, haha, this guy exists and you're never going to see him again. The fact that he took that and like kept putting him in situations and then grew him as a character, like it's just such a collaborative and really cool way like to show flexibility and listening. I don't know, it's just like it blows my mind and it's amazing. DMs are so cool.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I'm like, I will continue to be in awe of it Don't want to do it. Don't need to do it. Very happy being a player, even like a part-time NPC that just pops in and does a little silly thing and then leaves. No desire to run my own campaign.
Yeah. I enjoy, I've DM'd twice exactly. And the first time I was so stressed and cried in the bathroom in the middle of the game. And then the second time was for a patron episode. I think it was a patron episode, and it was just me, Mike, and Anthony, and they were being such dinglings, and I was like, fine, you guys just play, and I'll DM. And it was like I had 30 seconds to prepare, essentially. And I was like, all right, F it. We're doing like an Indiana Jones style treasure hunt, and that's it. And like I just improvised the whole thing, because the first time I had planned it so much. I had every encounter planned, I had everything set out, and like in the first 5 minutes they were like, oh, it was a maze, like a hedge mage, labyrinth,
a dungeon crawl.
Words are hard for me. Labyrinth.
Okay.
And one of the characters was like, I used rope trick to climb up 50 feet and see where the middle is. And at that time, I couldn't conceptualize improvising around that. Now I would know what to do to fix it. But like, it was hard for me to to deal with at the time.
Yeah. No,
all the respect for DMs.
But I think that's a big part of, just go all the way to the top. When it comes to either podcasting or streaming or stuff like that, there's some people I think are just naturally good at it, but there's the skill achievement ladder of getting better at rolling with the punches, or, you know, dealing with a weird technical difficulty that came out of nowhere, or somebody popping into chat that you weren't expecting. Like those elements you start to get better at, and some of it's practice and some of it I think is just being confident in yourself, but that absolutely translates to the D&D thing. And for you guys, it's so cool to me because you've been together so long. So you have this natural understanding of each other that I think just makes it that much cooler.
Yeah, it definitely helps knowing each other so well. You know, for better or worse, it's been 13 years of these buffoons. Like, that's such a long time.
It's a long time.
Such a long time. And the fact that like we were so close in college, because if you've been in a college theater club, you know why. You understand it. Like, we did improv together, we did shows together. These aren't necessarily boys that I would have been friends with. I think I would have been friends with Anthony no matter what. Okay. Like, I feel like Anthony is the type of person that I would have met and definitely been friends with. I don't know if I would have even met Mike if he hadn't come audition for the theater group, because he was, you know, a punk doing tricks on his skateboard
with his black eyes.
Yeah, with his black eyes and his mohawk. Like that, I don't know. I would not have been friends with Rob if he hadn't done theater, because I wouldn't have known he existed, you know? And Mikey didn't even do theater. He was just friends with my friends. You know, he was friends with Anthony and Mikey and Rob. So like, I don't know. And the fact that we were thrown into this situation where we were together all the time, it just created such a strong understanding, because, you know, when you meet people who are very, like, I feel like you and I, we don't need something to put us together to be friends, because like we just are on the same wavelength of so many things. Yes. But yeah, I don't know, just learning so much about the things that make them tick and the ups and downs and all that, I think has been really beneficial for the show, at least, and also for our friendships.
Yeah.
Content first.
I think that's part of the reason why a couple of the friends I have from art school, we are still so close, because, I mean, again, we obviously have the common interest of art and animation and all of that, but our personality types are different. We're very different people. We live different lives, but we were forced into this incredibly intense, insane experience, and we lived it together. And, you know, you tell other people about it, they're like, okay. And you're like, yeah, you don't get it because you weren't there, which is fine. But it is something, then you always have that kinship with those people. And And it's so cool to me to now have them as adult art friends, because I know there are a bunch of people who've joined me on Doodle Crew. Like, we still get to create together, and there's a shorthand, there's a joke, there's a, oh my gosh, I still hear, tangent in my head when I'm drawing because of one of our professors from 15 years ago. Like, oh, it's yeah. So it's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. It's weird the way that time works, and like, that's an existential conversation for another day. How's our art doing?
Yeah.
How's our girl Amelia?
She's good. She's carrying some bags. She's having a moment. I like this last panel a lot. I'm very happy with how, because I don't want them to be sad or mad. I just want that, I don't want to say quiet resignation, but like that quiet determination of, you posed a question to me that I think Desdemona thought is just kind of a one-off, because who would do that? And I didn't just agree with you. I actually have a lot of thoughts on this subject. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you about it, but I'm not yelling at you. I'm not scolding you. I'm not demeaning you in any way for what you feel about this, but I'm telling you that there are many ways to approach this situation. And yeah, I like that interaction.
That look on her face is so like, just surprised that it would be a throwaway question. Like, Desdemona's already back on her phone, already back searching the news or whatever, and Amelia's like, wait a minute, like you said, like, I have thoughts on that. And you can really see that in her expression, which is very cool. It looks great.
So this one's been so fun. They're all fun.
I feel like it just like happened. Like, I feel like the scene just like went on the page. And I know I talk about what you do as magic a lot, but yeah, it just like, you just drew it and it exists. And like, I don't know why I'm struggling to comprehend how that is possible, but like, it's really cool, because I feel like a lot of the times you work through the scene, but this just got on the page.
Yep. Yeah. No, and I think that's the most perfect description of all the different ways that an artist creates, because at no point am I ever upset to be working through a scene as you're describing it to me and all the things that are happening. But it's super cool when sometimes you're just like, nope, I see it. Like, I've got it. It's there. I've got it. Now I just have to draw it. And yeah, and it's very, very fun. And I think some of that is because I've been lucky enough to have been doing art the last few days. So I'm already in art mode, as opposed to other times where I've been doing other things. And then I finally get to sit down and actually do art. So it's very much that, like, when you've been practicing, when you've been stretching, like, your muscles are like, oh yeah, we know how to do this. This is the thing we're good at. So it's funny, but yeah, I think it's, I don't ever like to chalk something up to like my muse or stuff like that. Like, oh, my muse just decided to be with me today. 'Cause I think it gives away some of your self-ownership when it comes to your art. And I'll own up to the fact that, no, I have bad art days. I have bad days where I'm just like, nope, the things you created today weren't great, or they weren't inspired. That's okay, but we can do better.
Yeah.
But also then when I do have really good days, I was like, yeah, you kind of nailed it today. Like, good job, you. Good job.
That's on you.
Yeah. So,
Sonata, what is the song that inspired naming a character Desdemona?
Also, I realized there was a whole bunch that happened in chat that I was not reading. Yeah,
but it's been good. Lost Limey, I'm the same. I use babyname.com all the time. I'm always looking up baby names for stories and things. My favorite naming convention that I've ever used is, I wrote a short story for Adventure Inc. and every character took an ice dance team and paired up their names. So one of the characters was Grishuk Platov. And that's like from a dance team who is Oksana Grishuk and Oleg Platov.
I was gonna say you are completely on your own with that one. I cannot help you.
And then like another character was named Anasina Pezarat, which was Marina Anasina and Gwendol Pezarat. We had Augusto Belbin. We had, I don't even remember the rest of them, but like it just took 2 last names of Ice Dance teams, and like no one, the crossover of like people who would recognize figure skater team names and D&D patrons was like, I felt comfortable thinking it was low enough to take that chance. But I was really excited about it because I hate making up names. They make me so stressed. And these sounded like fantasy enough that they worked. Love the Magician by Dave Carter and Tracy Grammer. Cool. I will have to check it out. Also, He Who Is Steve, you're so aggressive. I don't write to entertain. I write to kill. I mean, it makes sense. I see it. Amazing. The song is about a couple in love fleeing from a disapproving father, and they get turned into animals as they escape being hunted down. That's cool. Also kind of takes that Othello trope or that Shakespearean trope and turns it on its head a little bit. That sounds awesome. I have to look it up. Cool. Y'all, no one's given me your favorite scene in Shakespeare.
Oh, yes.
How am I going to know what to give Emily at DragonCon? Oh, you should do the work yourself, Steph, and like actually prepare for once in your life. Funny you should say that, listener. No. You do it for me. It's funny, I didn't know what I was going to choose today. And then in my Facebook memories, it popped up as when I got cast as Desdemona. So I was like, that feels like a nice little tribute. Oh, Steve, that is a good one. That is absolutely going on my list. Steve has suggested the porter in Macbeth. And like Swan, I don't know if you know anything about that part of Macbeth. All right, awesome. I'm not going to spoil it. Okay. It's so good. But also Las Limey, St. Crispin's Day speech. I'm also putting that on my list. So we've got the porter, St. Crispin's Day. And you know what the great thing about both of those, the pee scene. Basically. My favorite thing about both of those scenes is that I will get to read them out loud at the panel. And so like that's a win for me. We did a read of, so last spring and summer, my Shakespeare group was doing weekly reads of Shakespeare plays. We would just like, randomize casting for most of them and just like do a read, do it on Zoom, do it whatever. It was really fun. That's the cool. Last one we did, because like I only read in like 1 or 2 of the 15 or so that we did. And the last one I was like, listen, this is for me. This is my turn. And I let myself read Henry V. And I was like, ha 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 ha. I get to say the best words in Shakespeare. And it was really fun because I'm A, obsessed with Hal, and B, it's just like you just feel I'm sorry. I need my fiance to come on camera really quickly because this is how he just walked into the house.
Oh my god. I don't even want to know why. I just
It's the first birthday gift for our niece. Second birthday gift. She loves accessorizing, so we got her a dinosaur head. Did you get the wings? Wings. And then my mom made a little green and black tutu.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
Are you
I have no idea what I was saying.
Are you a Pushing Daisies fan?
I've not seen it, no.
Oh, okay. So anybody in chat, if you're a Pushing Daisies fan, spoiler alert, I'm a tremendous Pushing Daisies fan. But there's a scene where they cut back to two of the main characters as children, and they're dressed up, and they have a similar thing where the little girl who goes by Chuck has like a dinosaur costume on, and she's got a very similar mask and like big like paws and claws and wings, and it's phenomenal. So I love it. I'm very happy about it.
Yep. Great. Heading to other docs comment. Favorite scenes are also from Macbeth, all the witch scenes. We did last month. I think it was last month, right?
Yes. Yes.
Last month we did the double toil and trouble scene in Sketching Shakespeare. So, or 2 months ago, I guess, because we skipped last month because I forgot it existed.
No, we did July. We didn't do or June. That's what it was. Yeah. Got it. Time, y'all. Time. Let me see if I can.
Time is a flat circle.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we did the witch scene, and it turned out so cool. Look at it.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the scene that we did. Yeah, I got to do double toil and trouble with all the
amazing
witches. It was so fun.
Time is soup.
Time is soup.
Oh yeah, that is rad as heck.
It's a lot of fun.
So yes, Henry V saying those words, you just feel so powerful. Like you feel like you own the world. Saying the St. Crispin Day speech, and so I think that's a really good option for Swan. Plus, it's something that we haven't done before, and I like that. Historical monologues. We love history in this house. Next choice would be Sceptred Isle bit from Richard II. Man, I haven't seen this part of Hollow Crown. I've seen a lot of the Hollow Crown bits and pieces and they're very, very good. I really love from Richard II, and I don't know Richard II super well. I know the speeches from it. So I don't want to get it wrong. But let's talk of graves and worms and epitaphs. That speech from wherever it happens in the play is like one of the like most chilling speeches in a history, like, or at all. Act 3 scene 2 is when that speech happens, so I don't know how close that is to Sceptred Isle. Patrick Stewart doing anything, man. I got to see Patrick Stewart play William Shakespeare in an original play when I was in London. It was called Bingo. It was about like the end of his life. Man, it's just like his voice just like cuts through your whole body, and you're like you feel at peace.
Yeah, no, he's incredible.
So incredible. Oh, I love him. Other doc says my mother and I did a version of the witch scene in an act at a Renaissance fair one summer when I was like 4 years old. Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
That's so cool.
I love that. Also, I think there's something really fun, like in general, about making the witches children. Like really haunting, really like creepy in a fun way to explore.
Well, because like kids have that amazing like manic energy and weird thought process, and sometimes no thought process, like inspiration and then go. And so to have little kids who also have power, like
yeah. And there's something creepy about their voices.
Yeah. When they do, anytime not that I watch horror movies ever, but they always use it for trailers. When they have like little kids singing like nursery rhymes or super slowed down versions of songs, I'm like, nope, I'm out. That's so creepy. I want none of that. Get out of here.
When I directed Macbeth, all of our prophecies were done in voiceover, and it was Macbeth's voice, one witch, Macduff, and one of the kids who was in our play, or two of the kids who were in our play. They were like 4 and 5 years old, and we layered their voices on top of each other for the prophecies, and it was like super cool because like our Macduff had this like gruff, voice, and our Macbeth had a bass voice, and then these tiny children, and yeah, it was like a really cool layering of sounds for that.
It's super creepy.
Yeah, super creepy. I love it. There are some really cool things you can do on stage that I feel I feel like the tech side of things gets so hard if you can't do it yourself. If you're producing, like, to be able to hire out stuff like that makes it cost prohibitive. But like if you've got someone on your team, or if you yourself can like play with sounds like that, there's just so much cool that can happen. Oh, that's fun. Other doc. In my case, she did all the dialogue and I ran around and interacted with the audience as her familiar Grey Malkin.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Little kitten. That's super fun. I love that. When I played a witch, we had to do like there was like a date night thing, and they had tables set up with all like, you know, it was like the witch's brew dinner or whatever. And so the three of us were kind of walking around and just like improv interacting with patrons before the show. And there were like flowers and things, and for whatever reason, because I'm a like weird person, I just decided to eat everything that was on the table. Like I just like, that was the character that I chose for the night, was just like putting things in my mouth. I don't know why. Like, why did I do that? I'm allergic to everything. I'm like gnawing on flowers, and I'm like, as I'm doing it, like, what am I doing? Stephanie, stop. You're being stupid. Like, what is your reason? It was because I didn't want to talk to anyone, was really the reason, because I like wasn't in the mood to improvise as a witch. I don't know. Like I just kept putting things in my mouth, and so I didn't have to talk, and I was like, why are you like this?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
The things we do to avoid dialogue. See, this is where, Sonata, this is where you would have come in handy. I would have just been like, write me dialogue, and I don't even have to think about it. I'll just use someone else's.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
y'all,
I love it so
today
much.
has been a trip. This is a cool piece. I like how modern it is.
So fun. Yeah.
I've never seen a modern Othello. I know there's the Julia Stiles high school adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like high school is the same as politics. It's like a really closed circuit breeding ground for terrible things to happen. But I've never seen like I've never seen a modernized Othello, and I think that's wild. I'm just missing it, I'm sure, but I think this is a really cool visual to get to have for the scene.
I'm realizing too with this, like, I don't know all the parts of Othello, but this feels very much like a Shonda Rhimes thing. Like this has like Grey's Anatomy or Scandal or like that type of energy to it, where I feel like if she brought the modernization to it, she could handle the drama and just the there's a better word for drama that I can't think of right now, but like
racism.
Well, yes, that too. That too. But yeah, just like she's comfortable in that like over the top drama where we're not quite to like dailies. But yeah, I can't word.
Yeah, it's not soap opera level because like real people actually die and stay dead. I mean, they're not real people, it's a play. But yes, I think that you're right, that it's that level of like it's not quite melodrama, but it's pushing that limit.
Yep.
Because Iago is a scary villain. Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. Now I want to Shonda.
Hit us up.
Your turn. Let's do it. Othello. I would watch the hell out of that. Absolutely. And it's not anything I had considered before, so thank you for giving me this perspective, as usual. Opening my narrow Shakespeare mind to something way cooler than I possibly could have imagined. I feel like that's the point of sketching Shakespeare. It's like I talk about my favorite parts of Shakespeare and Swan makes them cooler.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite part of Shakespeare is you bring me these really, really cool things that intimidate me and I don't feel like I understand, and you make them so accessible and so understandable, and I just get so excited about it. I'm like, I just want to take class with Steph so I can learn all of the Shakespeare stuff this way because this is so cool.
One day I'm going to get to teach a Shakespeare class. One day. I'm going to keep bullying my high school to like offer it. And then one day I'm going to get to teach it, and it's going to be the best.
Yeah. I just want you to bring like all of the sketching Shakespeare and Protest Too Much. Be like, here's all of the prep work I've been doing for the last year and a half.
Right. I think what I would do is like, because I started Protest Too Much with the, like, it's not always family friendly, but like 99% of the time it is, or like student friendly or whatever, which was one of the goals of mine. And I would love to like teach a course, and as their like unit quiz or whatever, like their end of course assessment, whatever that is, like do episodes, you know, like, or that style of back and forth where they have to surprise each other with a character and then match them up, because I think it would be really, really funny to just watch kids do that. Like, I think it's fun. I think it would be cool.
Well, and it was what you had mentioned, I think, before we went live, but it was some of the connections that they make are either something that I would have never considered, or the way that like the way they interpreted something is just so unique or so original, or just you're just like, I would have never gotten there. Like that. Yeah. That's so cool.
Kids are rad, and they're so smart. Oh, Sonata, that's really kind. If we can pop a little creative juice in y'all, give y'all a little Jello shot of, because that's what this does for me too. Like getting to see things from different angles and perspectives. I'm just like so amped to do theater. And I think going back to like what you were saying earlier about messing up, happy little accidents, or, you know, owning those, that eye is only going to happen that one time. I think that's a parallel with theater as well, because there's so much of like performance that feels so personal, and a lot of, you know, what am I going to give to this show? What parts of myself am I going to give to this character? Because there has to be an element of connection with you. If you're entirely, like removed from the character, that's going to show. Like, it's not going to connect. And so like, what elements of yourself are you going to give? And like reading through a speech 6 times, it's like, which one do I choose? You know, which choice do I make, and how do I and that's obviously like when you can get some input from a director as well, it becomes more of a collaborative thing. But yeah, like being tied to character choices or having to shake off bad character choices, like I think it's a cool kind of parallel to draw there.
Yeah. Well, I think the first time I really saw that, because as we've talked, like I haven't done a lot of stage acting in a sense of actual dialogue. Like there's acting in the dance that I do, but it's a very different way to do it. But the episode we did where it was both you and Mike, and you were talking about all of the different ways to handle this one scene and the motivation behind it. And, you know, is he actually being a mean person, or is he doing this, or is he meant to be funny, or all of these things? Like there were so many options just in us talking about it for 2 hours that I was like, that opens up so many cool options for what you could do and how you could bring more to it. Yeah. And it's just, that was so cool to me.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome.
I'm glad we do this.
I'm also glad we do this. I'm glad y'all have joined us today. This is a really, this is a really big scene for me in the Shakespeare canon. Like, I think it's one of the best. And I'm happy that we all got to share it today. Yay. Swan, it's really freaking cool.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us and chatting with us.
And thank you for doing my work for me for DragonCon.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. That's what one last thing I want to mention. So what I might do, depending on time, but because so actual special shout out, because I made a banner and everything. So as we've been talking about it, Steph and I will be actually live doing this panel at DragonCon on Saturday.
In the same room.
Yay! For the first time ever. Super exciting. I might have you, once you've picked what you're going to do, maybe give me the characters, because I might sketch them first just to get them set, because then I can jump in a little bit quicker, but depending on the scene, maybe not. That's the only thing I was trying to think of, like, what would I do to prep beforehand without just laying out a page? And it would be if I knew what the characters were going to look like before I went into it. But even that, no, maybe
Okay.
not.
Good to know. Good to
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks y'all for being here. This was.
Aw.
Oh. Thanks, y'all. I'm happy you're here. I love that we've got such a like art Shakespeare crossover. Like that's honestly the coolest thing.
Yeah. No, it's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Y'all are amazing. So. We will shout out info if streaming will be available for DragonCon. We're going to we'll put it in the Discords. If you follow, let's see where are our banners for this. So if you follow either Swan, a Swan named Emily, or P2M Pod on Twitter, if you follow either of those accounts, we will post about it. So basically we're waiting to know whether there's going to be internet in the rooms at DragonCon. So it'll be a little last minute, but like by, Wednesday or Thursday, we should know. Yeah. And the goal is that there will be streaming on the digital media page of the tracks. So fingers crossed, even if you can't get to DragonCon this year, you will hopefully still get to see the panel. Yeah. So follow Swan, follow P2M Pod, and we will keep you posted on what we're doing. We love you. Goodbye.
Bye.